The final keyword. Final keyword, immutability and control. The final keyword is Java's mechanism for declaring this cannot change. It is a cornerstone of writing secure, predictable, and thread-safe code. Core classes like string rely on final to guarantee their immutability, and we have seen this in our code as well, right? So, in professional Java development, final serves three distinct purposes depending on where it is applied: variables, methods, or classes. And we will see all these three, right? Final variables. When you declare a variable as final, it can be assigned exactly once and never reassigned. Primitive finals. For primitive types, final creates true constants. Now, what's that mean? Primitives are not reference, right? Their value cannot change. But we have one limitation for reference types, okay? Static final int max players, we have this convention, upper snake case. This as well, instance final must be set once per object. So without static, we can still declare our instance variables as final int order id. You can initialize this variable with your constructor, okay? Assigned once in constructor, compiler error cannot reassign. Also, you will get error outside as well, all right? Cannot modify final. Okay, now next one is reference finals, the critical distinction. When a reference is final, the reference itself cannot point to a different object, but the reference internal state can still change. Let's say you have this one, final string builder name equals to this one. Now, new string builder, you cannot do that, okay, with new keyword, because this one will try to assign new reference. Compiler cannot reassign reference, but what you can do is you can append. So this one will work, modifying internal state. And same behavior with other reference types as well, okay? Reference versus object immutability. Final on a reference means always points to the same object. It does not mean the object itself is immutable. For true immutability, you need immutable classes like string. And if you notice, our string is something like, if you go here, then this one is final class. That means we cannot inherit that. Okay, now let's move forward with our next thing, which is final methods, preventing override. Making a method as final prevents any subclass from overriding it. Okay. Use this when a method's behavior must remain consistent across the entire inheritance hierarchy. So let's say we have one class here and we mark this method as final. So if we are doing inheritance in this one, then we cannot override here. Okay. So basically we can override our process method that is not final, but we cannot override our log audit method. We'll get compiler error. Okay. And these final methods also helps our JVM as well, because normally instance method calls go through some virtual dispatch, okay? And our JVM looks up the actual object type at runtime to determine which version of our method to call. And this is how basically our polymorphism works. We will discuss in our polymorphism chapter, right? But if our method is final, the JVM knows no subclass can override it. Okay, so it can skip the lookup and call the method directly. So it's just one small optimization, but we still have that. Use case, security logic, why final method? Authentication and encryption must not be bypassed. This one is one use case, but you can have any. Template methods, framework hooks that define the algorithm skeleton, and validation logic. Now we have final classes, preventing inheritance. A final class cannot be extended. This is the strongest form of inheritance control. All right. Java core final classes. Core classes like string, integer, double, these are all final. This ensures their behavior is predictable and cannot be altered by subclasses. Main is this string. Okay, because strings are used everywhere in hash maps as keys and maybe in some security contexts. Then we have blank finals, deferred initialization. A blank final is declared without an initial value. It must be assigned exactly once in the constructor for instance finals or in a static block for static finals. These are just something like this one is blank final. You can initialize in your constructor, okay, or in a static block. That's also fine. If your variable is static, then you can use in static block. And if your variable is not static, then you can use that in your instance block. That's fine. But you cannot use non-static in your static block. Let's try to use that. Maybe we can see here. Let's create something static final max age. Let's not initialize that. That means might not have been initialized. First, let's see, will we get any compilation error? Yes. So we can initialize that here. But the question is, can we initialize this in our static block? No, we cannot do that. Non-static field, okay? Obvious. Building immutable objects, combine final class plus final fields plus no setters to create thread safe and predictable objects. Complete final reference, apply to variable, method, and class. Variable cannot be reassigned, method cannot be overridden, class cannot be extended. We have quick summary now. You can take a look here. And we can move forward with our next chapter, which is object class and methods. The object class, Java's universal parent. Every class in Java implicitly extends object. It is the root of the entire class hierarchy. Okay, and understanding object and its methods is essential because these methods define how objects behave in collections, debugging, and equality comparisons. Okay, so when you create anything, let's say class students, Java treats it as class student extends object. This means every object inherits a set of methods that you should know how to override properly. First one is toString method. By default, toString returns a string like something this, class name, and then has, okay, hash code in text. This is not useful for debugging, also not human readable. We can override it to return meaningful information, and that can be anything. But let's see, we have this class, okay, and we can extend this one object, that's fine. You can see that we have one warning, class user profile is never used, okay, that's fine. If you click on that while pressing control, you can see here we have some useful methods. Okay, now what is native we will see later. Okay, we can search basically toString. This one will return your class name, okay, then at and integer dot to hex string hash code. So you can override to string, you can return anything, okay. Best practice, always override to string in your domain classes. It significantly improves debugging and logging, okay. Most IDEs can auto-generate this method if you want. The equals method, the default equals and this double equals, okay. The default equals uses this one, which compares memory addresses. Two objects with identical data are considered not equal unless you override this method to compare by content. Okay. So let's say we have class here employee. We can override equals. Step one is same reference, definitely equal. We can check using that. Then step two, if this one is null or different class, we have one method here that is object.getClass. So basically our get class will check exact same class, not subclasses as well. So you definitely use this get class, not instance of, because instance of returns true for subclasses as well. So which can break symmetry. Step three, if you are here, that means you have same class, you are not null, all right? If you have same class, that means you can cast this object, right? You can return this dot employee id dot equals. This one will be your custom comparison, right? If you want to compare based on employee id, that's still your choice. And if you want to do that with some combination using employee id and name, that can be anything here. So if your employee id is same, then you can return true. All right. Even if you have created using new keyword, if you are overriding these equal methods, then still you can return something here true. Okay. Never use this one. Use dot equals. All right. Now our next one is hash code, which is related to our dot equals. If you are overriding dot equals, then you must override hash code as well. This is a contract basically that Java collections depend on. And we will see that in our Java collections that are equal must return the same hash code. Okay. Something like that. Then you also override this hash code based on your employee ID. Okay. Things you are doing here. We have a note here. The equals hash code contract. If a dot equals b is true, then a dot hash code must be equals to b dot hash code, because breaking this contract causes bugs in hash map, hash set, and any hash based collection. Okay, because hash code decide which bucket an object goes into. And if you put an object in a hash set and it calls hash code to build the bucket, then equals to check for duplicates within that bucket. And if two equal object return different hash codes, that means they will land in different buckets, and our hash set will think something like they are different, even though our equals says they are same. So we will discuss these things in our collections, hash set and hash map. Okay. Then we have quick comparison table. Scenario, same object equals true, hash code, valid, correct, equal content. Then our equals must true, hash code same, okay, valid required, then equal content equals true, then hash code different. That means contract broken. Different content false. You can have same hash code, that's fine, legal but inefficient. Okay. Now we have clone method. A clone method creates a copy of an object. It is protected by default. So you must implement clonable to override it. And we will see what is clonable later part of our series. I guess we can skip this for now, but if you know, then you can see that implements clonable. We can override here. Okay, super.clone, shallow copy. Shallow versus deep clone. Clone type shallow, behavior copies field values directly, nested objects, references shared, okay, not independent. Remember that. Deep clone, recursively clones nested objects, fully independent copies. For true independence, you must use deep clone, okay? Manually clone every mutable nested object. And I guess we can skip this thing for now. We will see this one later. But if you know, if you want to see, then you can see here. This one is deep clone, the nested object. All right. We have modern alternative for that. Many developers prefer copy constructors or factory methods over clone due to its complexity. Example, we can use new person, existing person, or person.copy or something like that. Okay. Then we have method chaining, fluent interfaces. Method chaining allows calling multiple methods on the same object in a single statement by returning this from each method. We have seen that. Okay, now we have method chaining, fluent interfaces. Method chaining allows calling multiple methods on the same object in a single statement by returning this from each method. And if you are returning this, then we can call any other method belong to this instance, right? That means you can do something like this. String query equals to new query builder dot select dot from users dot where dot build. Okay, very important thing. You can have real world examples like string builder dot append dot append dot append dot to string. Let's copy this one. Let's come here and you can go inside this. So we are calling super here. We will see that. Super means calling its parents constructor basically. Okay. We are returning something here in append. You can see we are returning this here basically. Okay. So we can call this a method again, right? Builder pattern with chaining. Then we have quick comparison, quick summary as well. You can take a look into that.